And out front now, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. And Governor, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Appreciate your time. You're going to be with Donald Trump.
Thank you.
Hillary Clinton, of course, holding a double-digit lead over Trump in your state right now, 15 percentage points in the latest poll. Trump lost Wisconsin the primaries, of course, to Ted Cruz, whom you had endorsed. Does he have a chance now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster. A couple days after the July 5th announcement by the FBI director about Hillary Clinton's emails, that same poll had her up by only about 4 points. I think you see if the campaign's about Hillary Clinton, it's more likely to be close. If it's about Donald Trump and other issues, the gap will widen. And I think that's because the American people and people here in Wisconsin understand that if you look at the facts and you want to change, Hillary Clinton's not the person to make that change happen.
Now, when you say, you know, if it's about Donald Trump and other issues, it could widen. The Wall Street Journal editorial board, as you know, has urged Republican leaders like yourself to dump Trump if he doesn't start acting more presidential. And in part, they wrote, if they can't get, again, referring to people like yourself, if they can't get Mr. Trump to change his act by Labor Day, the GOP will have no choice but to write off the nominee as hopeless. As for Mr. Trump, he needs to stop blaming everyone else and decide if he wants to behave like someone who wants to be president or turn the nomination over to Mike Pence. Do you agree?
No, I think the focus has got to be on the two candidates. If Donald Trump talks about Hillary Clinton and he talks about himself, what he's going to do when he's president to make people's lives better, talk about the kind of things that he talked about, more importantly, his children talked about at the convention, where they talked about a builder who could relate to the bricklayers just as well as anybody else, and talk about how he's going to look out for them and families like them, and contrast that with Hillary Clinton. If the election is about her and about those issues and about Americans wanting a change, she's not the right answer.
The issue, though, of Donald Trump, if he continues to bring up things or create fights that are not about the core issues as you see them, do you agree with the Journal that he has a deadline of Labor Day and that he should consider getting out himself?
I mean, I think the reality is Americans know the election this November is going to be between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. There's not some other candidate. There's not some other choice. A vote for anyone other than Donald Trump is de facto a vote for Hillary Clinton. And I, for one, is not going to be party to that. I don't.
You say that, but of course your support of Trump is not overwhelming when it comes to Trump himself. Right before the convention, you told delegates to vote how they saw fit. When Trump said he wasn't ready to endorse Paul Ryan in your state this month, you tweeted that same day a picture of you and Paul Ryan saying, "We stand with Paul Ryan." In the wake of Trump criticizing the Muslim Gold Star parents, you said, of all Gold Star families, I'm quoting you, Governor, I respect them. They deserve our respect no matter what the political situation is. Look, your personal feelings about Trump seem to come through in all of those things. I mean, what makes you decide to stand by him today, with him physically?
Well, my point is that I do not endorse everything that Donald Trump has said or done. And that's why, again, I ran for president. I didn't endorse him initially. I didn't endorse him in Wisconsin. But I said last year, and I meant it, I wasn't holding my fingers behind my back, that any of the 17 candidates running for president of the United States as Republicans I thought were better, including Donald Trump, and I believe that.
There's been great inequality and great debate in your own party about where the money should focus. 83 days to go, Governor. Is there a time that the Republican Party should say, all right, forget about Trump, he'll do what he's going to do, but we need to save the Senate, save the House? Senator Ron Johnson's bid for re-election, of course, crucial to you. Marquette University Law School poll right in your state says Russ Feingold is leading Johnson 49 to 43%. Is there a time when that money should go to those races?
Well, I think the two go together. I think you can't abandon a presidential candidate, no matter who it is, and expect other candidates down ballot to do reasonably well. I think there are cases where in some states historically Senate candidates or gubernatorial candidates have polled slightly better than the presidential candidate and vice versa. But Donald Trump needs to perform well for candidates all across America to perform well. It's why he has to focus, I believe, on the race between him and Hillary Clinton. I just can't say it enough. If the race is about Hillary Clinton, Republicans win not only the presidency, they'll win in the U.S. Senate, they'll win in the House, they'll win in other races.
And, Governor, I also want to talk to you about the violence that has rocked Milwaukee, the fatal shooting of a black man last week by police. Now, obviously, it was calm in the city overnight. This morning, you said Clinton is inflaming the situation, in part by saying that there needs to be trust rebuilt between police and communities. What specifically is wrong with that, the concept of rebuilding trust between police and communities?
Well, I think long-term, it was more the context in which the comments were raised. I think trust is a wonderful thing. I had a lot of meetings about it today, but I think trying to imply that the police did something wrong here when I think it's important for nobody to rush to judgment. And I would hope that leaders of either party would do that. Say, there's a process, let's let that be. In the larger context, sure, we can talk about rebuilding trust across America, but that's where I just drew the line of distinction.
Look, there's a fair point. You have to let the process play out. But I do want to understand, when you say it was the context in which she said that, what exactly it is that you find problematic. Let me just play again what she said for you.
Look at what's happening in Milwaukee right now. We've got urgent work to do to rebuild trust between police and communities and get back to the fundamental principle: everyone should have respect for the law and be respected by the law.
So what is the issue with that?
Well, again, the concept's not a bad one, but I think that's proactively brought. You asked me a question, I answered. I didn't proactively come out and say the police were right or the individual was wrong. I said there's an independent process out there. And I think that's just what leadership requires, even in the midst of a political campaign, to not say I'm going to make statements one way or the other.
All right, Governor Walker, thank you so much for your time.